Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. My name is Basirat Razak Shuwai. I am the founder of the Winford Center for Children and Women, which happens to be like the parent company for Special Needs Toys Niger, an Instagram page, which some of you may have come across. The Winford Center for Children and Women is a charity that supports children with developmental disabilities in Nigeria. Um, so, autism, ADHD, sensory processing disorder, and the likes. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope I'll wait maybe a minute or two and allow other people to join. Um, if you're joining me on Instagram, thank you. I'm going live on the Special Needs Toys Niger handle. My name is Basirat Razak Shuaib. If you have not met me before, I am the brain behind Special Needs Toys Niger. Um, Special Needs Toys Niger is like a sales outlet for the Winford Center for Children and Women. So I'll wait for a minute or two to allow other people to join in before we start talking today. So I'm waiting. Okay, good. We've got one person join us. One person's joined on Facebook. So let's say we'll just record this anyway. Whoever is not able to join, hopefully will be able to watch it later on. So first of all, let's talk about development in children. In this part of the world, people are concerned when children don't develop at the same rate maybe their peers are developing. Most often forgetting that children develop at different rates. Every child is different. What might take one person a day to achieve might actually take another person 3 days to achieve. So it's very common to have parents compare their children with other children, just as a way of tracking their development. But would we say this is the best way to track children's development? Most certainly not. What I would always say to people is that if you don't know what you're looking for, it's hard to know when that thing is not happening. So if I am waiting for Mr. A or Mr. B's child to do something and then use that as a benchmark for my own child to do it as well, how do I know that Mr. A or Mr. B's child is doing what they're meant to do at the right time? So it's not enough for me to wait for someone, to wait for another person's child and monitor their own development as a benchmark for my own child's development. Which is why I would recommend that, every parent makes an attempt to know what the developmental milestones are after having their children, so that you can use these milestones to track child's development. Those milestones have been prepared by experts. We haven't prepared them, and they are freely available on the internet. So this milestone, these checks have been developed by experts. You can download them and take advantage of them, and then use those milestones or this trackers to check the progress your child is making in their development. So for speech and language, we all, well, let me say we all, what I have noticed is that a lot of people, when they say my child isn't talking or my child isn't talking properly, what they are referring to is what is at the very top of the speech and language pyramid. So let me see if there's a way that I can show you that pyramid. Just a second, so that I'm not going to go off this page. So let's take one that looks a bit clear. Okay. So at the top of, at the very bottom of the speech, at the very bottom of the speech and language pyramid is what you have called attention and listening. So usually there are skills that a child must build before they get to the very top where they are talking. At the very bottom, you've got attention and listening. That is a child's ability, and these skills develop, earlier on in a child's life. Attention and listening, which is the fact that when you're talking to a child, the child is actually listening to you. How are you able to tell that a child is listening to you, particularly maybe when they're about a month, 3 months? It's from little signs. Maybe when you call their name, they can turn, and then you know that they're listening. When you're talking to them, they're making eye contact with you. When you're talking to them, they're paying attention to what you're saying. Those are some of the signs that can, help you know that a child is paying attention. Also, there are other things that, as a child is growing older, raising beautiful little minds. Thank you for making your platform available. I'm not sure if you were able to join on Facebook, but thank you for being here as well. This is a collaboration between us, myself, Basirat Razak, and Raising Beautiful Little Minds. To increase awareness of speech and language disorders in Nigeria, and particularly, to shed some light on how parents can go about maybe identification and possibly getting the help that they need if they're faced with a child who has this type of disorder. So at the bottom of the language pyramid is what you have, which is called attention and listening. Now, it is understandable that when children are very young, they have really, really short attention spans. I mean, even as adults now, you have some connection issues. It seems fine from this side, but I don't know. It seems okay from this side. Is it going off on your side? So legal consulting, thanks for joining. So they have very short attention spans. So you wouldn't expect a child to sit down straight for 1 hour listening to something that is boring, or listening to a speech or something like that. No. They can listen for short periods of time. So we need to take that into consideration when we're talking about, how much attention a child is paying to whatever it is that we are saying or doing. So at the bottom there, we've got attention and listening. It's the pyramid looks something like this, and right at the very bottom. Now, what you would often find is that you have frozen over here in the UK. Oh dear. Is that on Facebook or on Instagram? So I know which one to change. I can try to change the connection. But tell me, frozen on Instagram or frozen on Facebook, and then I can change the connection. Okay, thanks. So the thing about this steps is that if they are not properly developed, the speech, which I at the very top, is not going to be properly developed. So these are like, it's like climbing a step. You cannot be on step 5 if you have skipped step 1 or step 2. You have to ensure, all of the steps have to be properly developed for step 5 to manifest properly. So the next step is social interaction and play skills. The fact that, a child is willing to mingle with other people, is willing to mingle with other children, is willing to mingle with other adults, particularly known adults around them. They understand, how to play. Now, a child is born as a blank canvas. You see, a child does not come to life with a lot of skills pre-planned. It is when they come that they learn a lot of the skills. So at this point, they are learning how to play. They are learning how to take turns, play with someone, probably, exchange toys, be able to listen to an adult, or, be able to communicate in a certain way, not necessarily verbal communication, because we expect that maybe the speech may have not developed at that time. So maybe, for instance, if a child is about 6 months old, you would expect that they should have some words, maybe they might have said the first words. It might not be words that really make sense, but they're already making sounds. Some people say that the kids' first sounds are baba. Some say they want it to be mama. I have two sons. I have two boys. My first son's first words was his name. His first word that I could properly understand was his name, Abdul. That was his first word. Probably because we were always calling him more than we were calling either mama or dada or anything. So, but that a child is able to interact socially, be able to want to play and be with other children, just have fun and share fun with other children. Now, you can see how we're progressing. The fact that a child can listen. Now, there's this thing when I'm talking to you that your brain's doing. When I say something, your brain takes what I have said in whatever language I have said it, converts it into a language that your brain understands. So if your brain understands this language that I am speaking properly, converts it, gives it meaning, and then that translates into what you should do next. So if I say to you, bring me a cup, first you have to listen. Your brain has to translate that for you, that it means you need to get up. It means you need to go to wherever the cup is. Maybe the cup is in the kitchen, or the cup is somewhere else different from the room I am in. You need to go to that location. You need to pick up the cup. You need to come back to where I am, and then you need to hand it out to me. Now, that's like 5 different steps I have told you that you need to take following just one instruction: bring me the cup. Your brain needs to be able to translate these instructions for you. Now imagine that you don't have attention or listening in place. It means you probably are hearing bring me or bring the, you haven't heard what I've asked you to bring, maybe plate. So you would end up doing the wrong thing, which is why these things are in order. You need to be able to listen, because it's like input-output system. If you're unable to listen or unable to take any instructions, then it would be difficult for you to be able to carry out whatever instruction it is that is being given. On the third level of that pyramid is something called understanding language. So it's one thing for you to be able to listen, it's another thing for you to be able to understand, which is what I have just explained. The fact that your brain is able to interpret what I have said so that it carries exactly the same meaning as I, the person talking, have intended. That is understanding, that I'm able to speak to you and that you're able to interpret, or you're able to follow what I have said in exactly the same way, that it carries the same meaning that I intended when I started talking to you. And then we move on to expressive language. Now, expressive language is how a child is able to communicate back to you. So we talked about the child listening to you, the child, willing to play with other people, the child understanding what you're saying. And then the next thing is for the child to be able to express themselves. Now, this could be verbal and non-verbal communication. So it could be verbal, in the sense that the child might be able to say, I want something. Or it might be non-verbal to the extent that, the child might not be able to say to you that I want something, but at least can point to what they want, or at least can nod their head. If you say, do you want A or do you want B? The child can nod their heads and say no, or they can nod their heads yes, or they can open their arms and say carry me, or they can cry when they don't feel appreciated, or they want you to give them attention or something, or they might even be able to use verbal language at that point. Now, verbal language is at the top. It is only at the point that a child starts to use verbal language we can start to talk about fluency. So if a child is not even able to express themselves to start with, to think that the child would then start to talk, or talk the way that you want them to, will be expecting too much of that child. You see, so that is why speech, pronunciation, and fluency skills is at the very top of that pyramid, because the child needs to have done many other things in the process of, attaining fluency in the speech and language. So now, having spoken about, what it takes for a child to attain speech and language fluency, the next thing would be in the society where we find ourselves. So I live in Nigeria now. I used to live in the UK, but now I have moved to Nigeria to progress the cause of the charity. What is the experience? What do we find the parents are struggling with? Number one, there's something that you would hear around. For instance, if your child is not talking. So now when I say talk, I'm referring to the topmost level of the pyramid. If you notice or observe that your child isn't talking maybe the way that you would expect them to, what is it that people tend to say? They might say things like, oh, boys are slower to talk than girls. They might tell you, oh, it runs in the family. People take their time to talk, or the kids in this family take their time to talk. They might tell you all sorts of things. Rather than tell you, are you checking the developmental milestones for this child? That is very, very straightforward. There are things that you can check, things that you can look at and say, has my child achieved this? If my child doesn't achieve this, then maybe I truly have something to worry about. And then, follow up with the appropriate professional. But when you start believing things like, oh, it runs in this family, children take a long time before they talk, you're exposing the child. Because if the child truly has a disorder, which has nothing to do with what happens in that family, then you would have possibly denied that child the chance of getting an early intervention, simply because, you were following something that wasn't quite the right thing to follow. And another thing would be that, that there's also the issue of denial, where parents don't want to come to terms with the fact that there's actually something wrong with the child. I mean, not necessarily wrong with the child. You just keep thinking this thing is going to go away. It's going to go away. Some things don't just go away. They if you don't fix them, they won't be fixed. So there's that issue of denial. And then there's the last one, which is not even lack of knowledge, which is that some people don't even know. They just look at it that, okay, when the child is ready, the child will talk. Then those categories of people. Now, our role as a charity or as people who are promoting, supporting children with special needs is to increase awareness, to let them understand what it is that they have to look for, or the things that they have to watch out for when they're children, so that you don't end up missing that window early intervention, for them to even know where they can go if they are concerned that a child has speech and language problems. So for the people living in Nigeria, I understand that there is a shortage of professionals. Um, Not due to anybody's fault. It's just, let me say, where we are on the development ladder. We are at the bottom, and so this reflects in the provisions that we have available for in the healthcare sector, and particularly for children who have special needs. So this is a problem. We don't have enough professionals to look after people who potentially have this problem and are looking for a solution. But even though if we don't have enough, where can people go? Where can people find help? If you go to the Winford Center for Children and Women, we have a page called Where Can I Find Help? I will post the link just before this live session goes off. I'm going to post the link for you to see. What we have tried to do is to get all of the professionals who are working in this space, get them on our database. We boast of the most comprehensive database that you can find online at the moment in Nigeria. And that's the beautiful thing. You don't have to be anywhere for you to find it. Just go to the website and you will find the information. So the Winford Center for Children and Women, we have a page called Where Can I Find Help? On this page, you are able to click the state where you reside and the type of professional you're looking for. So it could be health, it could be education, it could be maybe organizations, other organizations that support children who have special needs. So you can go on our website and you will find the information. Where it returns nothing, it means we actually don't have that information. And again, it's not because of the fact that we have not attempted to find the information. It's just because of the paucity of data in Nigeria. It is quite challenging to find all the type of things in order for you to put together in the database. So please head on to our website, the Winford Center for Children and Women, to find organizations that can support speech and language delay. There's also another resource that I am going to share with you, and you can share this with other parents. So I am presuming that most of the people in this group, parents with children, parents of children with speech and language delay, are already have a child or children who have speech and language delay. However, there are things that you can share with other parents who have not yet identified, so to say, what may be wrong with their children, or who can benefit from the knowledge that you hold. And this is something called the ASQ questionnaire. Now, you see, the ASQ questionnaire is something that you're typically given in the UK. For those of us, or for those of you who live in the UK, you know that when the child is 2 years old, they would ask that the mandatory 24 months assessment be done. And I think every county has it. At the 24-month assessment, you're given a questionnaire. This questionnaire is available online. The they use it. The NHS uses it. But for Nigeria, where there's no NHS or nobody's giving you this type of questionnaire, this is a very, 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 very useful questionnaire that you can download and that you can use. And it tracks, what the child should be doing at 2 years and what they're not doing. When you use this questionnaire, you may not be able to interpret the results because it's just a questionnaire, but it gives you, something good to hand over to the professional that you want to work with. So if you're going to go meet a pediatrician, for instance, you can hand over that questionnaire to the pediatrician. The pediatrician will be able to identify what is potentially going wrong with that child. I'll give you a personal experience. I have a son who is 3 years old now, and based on the work that I do in this area and based on the knowledge that I have, when he was 2 years, I was a bit worried about the rate at which his speech was developing. How I wasn't, because there were girls in his class who were doing better. I was sort of thinking you should be able to pronounce some words. He wasn't pronouncing some words properly. I had done hearing tests for him, and if you remember they would typically say that by the time a child is 2.5, the mom or the person who is closest to that child should be able to understand about 90% of what that child is saying, even if an external person doesn't understand. The person closest to the child, the closest carer to that child, must be able to understand, let me not say must, should be able to understand what that child is saying. And by the time a child is 3 years old, an external person, that's someone who doesn't live in the same household with that child, should be able to understand what the child is saying. So this sort of gives you, like a benchmark, which says the rates are different. It gives you a window of development. Say, give this child some time for their skills to develop. So bearing that in mind, bearing all of those things in mind and all of the information that I have in mind, I still wasn't comfortable that his speech was developing at the level that I wanted it to. And then when I started showing concerns was slightly before he turned 2. So after he turned 2 and I saw the speech and language, I saw the health worker who was meant to do his 24-month assessment, we established that some things were truly missing. However, we were going to give him another 6 months to monitor him and then see how he develops. Now, because of the level of services that you have there, which possibly doesn't exist in Nigeria, we were also scheduled for a speech and language assessment. Now, going for the speech and language assessment, I could have been that parent that says, no, over my dead body, it's not in my lineage, it doesn't happen in my family, this cannot be happening to my child's better than that, or I could start to do all of those things. But no, for me, what is most important is the welfare of the child, and that should be every parent's priority. How you feel, your ego comes second, shouldn't even exist when it comes to your child. As long as your child gets the care that they need, or whatever it is that they need in terms of developing them, then how you feel is actually second. Just put that aside. Put that aside for a moment and just give the child a chance to get the best outcome. So we're scheduled for a speech and language assessment. And again, because it's the NHS, some of these things take time. So we didn't get to do the assessment immediately. But by the time, he has my younger son has an older brother who talks very well. And they were home all summer holidays together, chatting and playing together. So by the time we eventually got to do the speech and language assessment, he had turned 3. And his speech was way better. Like his speech had improved dramatically. Now, for me, the parent who still thinks, he can do better. He can do better than this. People outside would tell me his speech is very good for his age. And so it was at that point I started to reconsider, maybe I was being too hard in terms of the expectations that I make. Hold on a minute, I think I may have been disconnected. Okay, we're back. People on Instagram are meant to say, but now we're back. So eventually when we had the assessment, the therapist told me that there was nothing wrong, that she didn't see anything wrong, that she could understand him clearly. They made him read out some things, he called them. Now, the things that I was concerned about, maybe him not pronouncing some words properly. So maybe if he wanted to say something like daddy, he could say something like gaggy. He would call his D's as G's. And then maybe if he wanted to say something like sofa, he might say something like sopa. He was calling his F's as P's. She said, give those ones time. Those are things that he would overcome with time. So that was it. Now, I have comfort in knowing that, everything is on track with him. But guess what? If everything was not on track, it would have been at that assessment that I would have been told to start seeking therapy services in order to help him to get better. Now, if I am in denial or I am ignorant of all of this process, or I don't even know what to look out for, how would I be able to help this child? I would probably be sitting there and be thinking, he's going to outgrow it, he's going to outgrow it. What if he doesn't? Besides, things like speech and language disorders are so important because they are they're sort of indicators to other conditions that a child might have. So, for instance, when they're going to make a diagnosis of autism, speech and language plays a very crucial role in coming up with that diagnosis, being able to establish that, and some of these other things that we mentioned in the language, speech and language pyramid. All of these things play a crucial role in determining, if a child is on the spectrum or if a child is not on the spectrum. So that is how important it is for parents to understand the developmental milestones that they are meant to be checking. So now that we have said all of this today, who else can help you? I have mentioned that you can go to the website and find therapists or professionals who work with speech and language. But if by any chance, you're still stuck or anything, I am not a speech and language therapist. I am not that at all. But I have a few professionals in my network. I have a speech and language therapist in my network who I can also ask, to speak to people about the ways that they can help their children. But one thing I'm going to leave with you, because I'm getting close to the end of this live session. One thing I'm going to leave with you is that children mirror what they see a lot. So if you have a child who is constantly in front of the TV or who constantly has a device, these gadgets are a one-way communication system. The gadgets are talking to them. They don't have a chance to talk back. Many of the things do not encourage children to talk. So very early on, try to ensure that your children is playing with other children, no matter how difficult that might be for you, or how that might, inconvenience you in terms of your schedule and all that. Ensure that your children are playing with other children, because it is from playing that they would make attempts to talk. Social interaction and play skills. Ensure that they're playing with other children. Ensure that you're talking to them. And where the language is, where they have shortcomings in the language, you can help them develop the language. How? If a child, for instance, says bus, mommy, bus, you can go on and say, yes, blue bus. Extend their words. Now, when you start extending children's words, don't extend that is a blue bus going. That's too much. Sometimes it's difficult for children to be able to take in all of these things at once. And again, because of the rates that children develop, you just need to take it slowly. So rather than say, yes, that's a blue bus going or something, if a child says to you, bus, you can say, yes, blue bus. Keep doing that. Keep repeating it. Keep repeating it. The child will get used to it. First, you're helping the child to identify the color of the bus, and at the same time, you're helping the child to extend their sentences. Next time when the child says to you, blue bus, then you can say, yes, big blue bus, or small blue bus. Then you have moved from 2 words to 3 words, and like that. Then, if the child gets to the point where the child can say to you, big blue bus or small blue bus, then you can say, big blue bus is going. Now we're moving further. So extend the words, extend the words, extend the words, and extend them, in stages. Don't rush them. Don't land them with like 5 words at the same time and expect them to be able to pronounce all the 5 words at once. It might be difficult for children to be able to do this. Thank you everyone who has joined us on Instagram. Then another tip that I can share with parents who already have a child with speech and language delay is, don't be discouraged. There are many times that children come out of speech and language disorders. There are also many times that speech and language disorders are a symptom of some other disorders. So maybe a child might not fully overcome those difficulties. Whichever case you find yourself, don't be discouraged. What your child wants to know is that you have faith in them, that you believe in them. Hello, Fatima. Thanks for joining me. That you have faith in them, that you believe in them, that even though they're struggling, that you're not frustrated. And even if you're frustrated, that you're not taking out your frustration on them. Because if you take out your frustration on them, it adds to the burden that they have to bear. So first they have to bear the burden of trying to make sure that the language is that they're able to communicate with you, which also gives them frustration, because when a child wants to communicate with you and the child is unable to do it either verbally or non-verbally, the child gets frustrated and starts to throw tantrums. They might start to, behave in ways that you don't want, simply because they can't get you to understand what they want or what they need at that time. So there's that part where they are carrying that burden of, trying to communicate with you successfully. And then you're going to be adding on top of that the fact that, you're not very happy, or maybe you're frustrated with the rate at which their language skills developing. And the last thing the kids want, they can read feelings, they can tell the way you feel. The last thing that you want to do to them is for them to start to worry that you're not happy with them because they can't do something properly, which is totally out of their control. You see, so it's a lot of weight that you will be putting on their shoulders um, if you land your disappointment or your frustration at their language skills, if you land it at their own steps. So whatever it is, just try to. I know how difficult it can be, but just try to absorb it. Try to find other parents. This group is one of such connections. People who have similar difficulties. You can come together and share your stories. You can relieve the pressure from there so that you're not taking it back to the children. And if you don't already do this, read to your children. Read to them, read to them, read to them. I cannot emphasize this enough. This reading culture, I was not read to as a child. Not that affected my speech and language. However, research has shown that reading to children actually improves, right? Actually improves. So maybe I may be better. I may have been better. Maybe I may have done that better. But hey, it improves, their ability to communicate because words, kids don't manufacture words. They don't. Everything a child says to you, remember at the beginning of this broadcast, I said to you that children are born as a blank canvas, okay? And then a black canvas is, a canvas for painting, and then you start to paint on it. Their experiences, the things you say to them, the things they learn around are all the things that becomes, the picture on that canvas. Now, everything that a child says is something that the child has either seen or heard before. They don't manufacture things. It's either they've seen it at some point or they've heard it at some point. Now, a child who is not exposed to too many words will not have too many words. Think about it this way. I've got a glass here, right? I've got this glass here. I start to drop things into it. This thing is representing words. So when I read to the child, I'm helping them build their bank, their vocabulary bank. So I drop a word into it, a new word they've never heard before. They don't necessarily have to say it after me, but they've heard it for the first time. So I put a new word in their bank, another word, through reading, and new words. Every time I read to them, new words. Sometimes I am repeating the same words to them. Now, when they get to the point where they want to talk, they need to call on this bank to take the word that they need. Now, imagine that I want to take something from this cup, but it's empty. I won't have the word that I need to use. However, if I filled it with words, it's easier for me to be able to look in here and say, the word I'm looking for is blue, or the word I'm looking for is red, because I have come in contact with that word once, twice, or many times before. So it's very, very important reading to children. So this is everything that I have to share today. Right here on Instagram, I'm just going to type the website, www.thewinfordcenter.org. The Winford. So it is the winfordcenter.org/, where can I find help? So that's the web address, the winfordcenter.org/where can I find help. I'll type it on here as well. Yes, so that's everything. If you have any question, please feel free to send your questions across. You can send it to me. My name is Basirat Razak Shuaib. My handle on Instagram is at Basirat_Shuaib. You can send it to the Winford Center. The handle is at the Winford Center. You can send it to Special Needs Toys. So all our handles are at Special Needs Toys. For Special Needs Toys, we retail. So the Special Needs Toys Niger, that's one of our handles. There's at Winford Center. And there's Basirat. So these are all the handles that you can reach me on. I'm going to put that as well on Instagram. This is one. This is the other. And yes, so on those three handles, you can reach me and ask any of the questions. Thank you, everyone who's joined in today. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. Raising beautiful minds, and I'm hoping that we can do more collaborations where we can help children who have developmental disabilities or special needs. Thank you very much, everyone who has joined, and my name is Basirat Razak Shuaib. I'm signing out. Bye-bye.